Yes, absolutely yes. There are 193 UN member states, and 359 people claim to have gone to all 193 of them. In fact, fun fact, there's something called the Traveller's Century Club, which is a club for people who have been to more than 100 countries. And the Traveller's Century Club, or TCC as they call it, even has an official list of 330 countries and territories that they recognise. And you might be wondering, Ben, how on earth did they manage to get their list to 330? Well, I'll tell you how. By stretching the definition of country as far as they can. How far are they stretching it, you may ask? They're stretching it so far, they might as well be torturing it on the rack. Okay, that definition is crying out in pain because of how far they're stretching it. Their list registers Hawaii and Alaska as different countries to the United States. And I assume the justification for this is that they're not part of the contiguous United States, so they get to be different countries. But they're still, objectively, universally recognised as fully integrated US states. Every single state in the world, even a state that is barely recognised by anybody as a country, such as, say, Transnistria, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, are all listed as countries on this list because they are just trying to get it as long as possible, and they've got it to 330. And, according to their president, in a statement she made less than 2 months ago, actually, 24 people have been to all 330 countries, or at least.
Part 2. Can you go to more countries than there are in the world?
But going to nearly 200 countries is still an achievement. You can't possibly go to more than 200 countries. I mean, it's literally physically impossible to go to more countries than there are exist, right? Like I can't go to more than 197 countries, or however many I recognise. That's just not possible, is it? Unless, in 1980, the state of Rhodesia was dissolved, and it was replaced by the state of Zimbabwe, and those two are widely recognised as separate countries. So if I visit Rhodesia in 1979, and then visit Zimbabwe in 1981, then have I not effectively gone to 2 separate countries, and so I can add 2 different countries to the number of countries I've been to? Depending on how many countries rise and fall in my lifetime, if I visit every country that ever exists while I am alive, then on my deathbed, can I not claim to have gone to way more countries than exist at the moment of my death? And you might be thinking, Ben, that's a bit silly. I mean, how often does a new country spring up? Well, depends on what time period you live in. Last year I did a series called Aftermath of World War I, where I discussed the aftermath of World War I, and for those of you who didn't watch it, long story short, it was chaotic. The average week in, say, 1919 saw a dozen new countries declare their independence, and by Tuesday, 6 of them would have fallen again, and that is barely an exaggeration. Dozens, if not hundreds of countries were declared in the aftermath of World War I. And so many of them collapsed within a matter of days. The shortest one I can find, the shortest existing country that I can find at least, is the Wurzburg Soviet Republic, which I can't remember what month it was, but it was declared on the 7th of the month, and it fell on the 8th of the month. It's pathetic, basically. Let's say I was born in 1998, then I'd be old enough to travel to all the countries that sprang up and then fell in the aftermath of World War I. Then when I was finished, I'd probably go to all the other countries that lasted more than a week, such as Brazil and all the other South American ones, say. And then I'd probably be in my 40s and eventually 60s and 70s when decolonisation starts. And decolonisation created a lot of new countries. In 1939, there were 73 sovereign states in the world. But then, most of the world fought a brutal war of independence against whichever colonial power was oppressing them this week. And today, there are 193 countries in the world, and that's by the most conservative possible definition of a country. And then if I'm really lucky and I live for a really long time, till like 90, and admittedly the life expectancy wasn't as good in the 20th century, then I could live through the collapse of communism and go to all the post-Soviet states like Turkmenistan and Georgia. Once again, I highly doubt that anybody did this. In the aftermath of World War I, news didn't travel as fast as it does today. But it's fun to know that in theory, somebody could have gone to potentially hundreds of countries over the course of the 20th century.
Part 3. How to go to thousands of countries in the space of a few years.
But I'm not done yet, guys, because even if you went to every single country on the TCC's list, you would not come close to visiting all the countries in the world, because I have discovered a way where you could literally visit thousands of countries over the course of just a few years, and I guarantee you someone's done it, and they may not even know it yet. Allow me to introduce you to the Zapatistas. They're a rebel organisation that's situated in the southernmost state of Mexico, Chiapas. right here. They hold territory in the eastern parts of Chiapas. With that said, until 2023, the autonomous territories were divided into 29 municipalities, and each of those municipalities were further subdivided into regions called communities. But each of these communities had a lot of decision-making power to make decisions about how to run things and what rules to make in the community, without much interference from the municipalities. For instance, the municipalities didn't bother keeping budgets because all the projects that went on in the communities were funded by the people in the communities, and sometimes from outside donations, although technically essential sovereignty was still supposed to rest with the municipalities. Well, no longer, because in 2023, the Zapatistas dissolved those municipalities, dissolved the communities, and replaced them with thousands of what they call local autonomous governments. And these local autonomous governments, at least in theory, have essential sovereignty over what goes on there. They have enough control over what goes on within their own land that I am quite happy to call that sovereignty. Admittedly, they are quite closely federated, they send representatives to meet at higher levels of government organisations, but it appears these local autonomous governments are federated in the same way that all the other countries are federated by the UN. i.e. they all send representatives to meet at the UN, but they still mostly have control over what goes on within their own borders. It is worth noting that all these local autonomous governments still appear to share a military, and that is the one way in which you can say that they are still united and they are still part of the same country, although I'm not sure if you'd call it that. But I still believe that in almost every other way they are effectively countries, meaning that there are thousands of countries located in eastern Chiapas. And, a lot of people go there. For instance, human rights observers frequent the region to observe human rights, or a lack thereof, and NGOs visit the place to do development projects, install electricity, install water systems and stuff like that. And it's worth noting that as of 2018, an estimated 300,000 people live there. So of all the hundreds of thousands of people that either live here or go there, I can only imagine that at least one of them has been to, say, at least 1,000 of these local autonomous governments. And that person can claim, whoever they are, to have visited more countries than any other person in their life. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Everybody else can go.
Part 4 Dear Travellers Century Club.
I'm speaking just to the TCC right now. So first of all, hi, how are you? I hope you're enjoying the annual banquet you hold in the independent country of Alaska, and I hope you're enjoying all your dessert, which is in the same shape as the independent Sheeples Democratic Republic of Hawaii. But I will say, you guys evidently love adding items to this list. That's why you listed on 7 territories from Antarctica that functionally do not exist. They exist in name only. My point is that if you love making your list as long as possible, then I have just given you an opportunity to make that list orders of magnitude longer than it already is. Boy, have you got your work cut out for you now. You're gonna have to add every single local autonomous government to that list. I don't envy you. As for everyone else, thanks for watching. Until our schedules meet.